45.
Looks like Tom Duncan.
Sounds like must be a duck.
Jersey girls are the best.
Yeah.
What?
The bunny ears are back. And everybody, welcome back to another edition of Laugh, Let and Need. Woohoo! We got some nice blues playing to this morning, man. I love that. So, I'm Fabi, I'm your host, and we're going to dive deep today with one of the industry shakers, you know what I mean, that I've known to be shaking up the industry, you know what I mean, for the last few years. Todd Scrima from Summit Funding. Todd, how are you?
Good, Bobby. Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, man. Look, I mean, we had this music picked out for you. We knew that you were a guitar player. Figured
I like it. You're grooving this morning.
I am, man. I'm trying my best, man. You know, it's we're 3 hours ahead of you, Todd. So we're a little bit on the decline side for guys who wake up at 4:30 in the morning like I do. I got a few more hours left before I'm going to call it a day.
I love it.
So, Todd, I know you've been like on the forefront of a lot of different things, you know what I mean? And we're going to dive into a lot of stuff, right? But I mean, how's everything going right now? I mean, I just saw the bond report, you know, and it was like 40 bips down on the MBSs this morning on the 6%. It looked like the jobs report, I guess, came out with some mixed numbers, blah, 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 right? I mean, and I know you've been in this as long as I have, if not longer. It's a challenging period, huh?
Yeah, if I were to frame up the state of the industry, and I like to be direct. So I started a little over 30 years ago in this industry. I started Summit 28 years ago, and then I was, had a coaching company for 20 something years, coaching a bunch of people, and so pretty entrenched in the industry. And it's I'll tell you a quick story. When I was 19, I was running a company for my father, and we would get home on Friday nights, and mom would make dinner, and then dad and I would go in the living room, mom would go to bed, and he'd pour a little shot of brandy, and we'd talk business. And he said, son, at least one time in your life, I don't know what you're going to do, go on and do in business, but at least one time in your life, things are gonna, like, your world's gonna get turned upside down, and there's only 3 things you should do. I was like, okay. He said, have a lot of cash, don't have debt, and take action.
Okay.
And I never, it's one of those moments where you're like, okay, for whatever reason, I remembered that. And so in 08, 09, I thought I went through it. That was it. That was the time Dad was talking about,
Yeah.
And come to find out, it wasn't. It was now.
Yeah.
This last couple of years. And in June of 2020, I have a 15-minute huddle with my executive team every morning. So I'm on that huddle, and I said, guys, I don't know what I said, this will be the greatest run we've ever seen. Like, rates are 2.5%. Everyone needs to refinance. Everyone needs to buy a house. I'm like, I said, but whatever comes after this, especially if this lasts more than a year, is going to be a complete poop show. Like, you're going to have $4 trillion in the economy pumped in. You're going to have inflation. You've done, 8 years worth of loans in 2 years. Like, you just did tomorrow's loans early, so it'll be a few years of kind of disaster zone. And sure enough, rates went up to almost 8%. You got volume 70% down. You got 50% of the loan officers out of the business, and the ones that are still in the business want to stay in the business, but they're scared as hell.
Yeah. Barry Habib was on the show a few weeks ago, and something he said that was really interesting. He said, this is like the Squid Game. Like, you survived 2023. Welcome. Now it's 2024.
Yeah. I just talked to Barry yesterday. That's funny you brought him up.
Yeah. So he was, we were doing a 2024 kickoff, but it was such a good way to, like, for me in my mind, especially being a football nut and the playoff starting, that's what this feels like. Okay, you survived, the regular season, you survived the wild card, you survived, but like the best of the best are now originating along with you. Are you prepared?
Yes.
And so I think, I guess we could shift into your loan officer university for a second, because I know you have that. And it seemed when I did a little exploration, thanks to your friend Tom, by the way, who kind of logged me in and stuff like that. What is could you explain the mission behind? I know we're shifting over to loan officer university, but
Yeah.
just
So
with 2024 upon us, right? What is the mission behind it?
When I retired from coaching, I had two thoughts in my head. One is I did start in another company a thing called Loan Officer University. It's like a 4-month program. Mm-hmm. So if someone wants to get into mortgage, there's no training in our industry, and people could pay a small fee and they get coached, and it's 80 hours of content on this online learning platform, and they're live coached. So it was a way to get loan officers into the industry. It's not a big program. We had 122 people through it last year. We'll probably do similar this year, but it's for those individuals that they want to get into the industry. They want a chance to have more unlimited income. They, maybe they're working in corporate America and they're good salespeople, but they're capped. And that's what that whole program's about. And then recently I started another program called Jolt Coaching. Again, small program. It's 10 students a month that I accept into it. And it's all about how to do massive leverage marketing with a specific avatar, with a specific offer. And going back to June of 2020, I told my team, I said, hey, I need you to free me up 15 hours a week because I need to prepare for whatever comes after this. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, I just know it's going to be bad. So I got to figure out some way. Well, in my mind, I thought is, what do loan officers really want? They want more loans always. Like they want more leads, but they don't know how to get leads in a regular market or a really depressed market. You got to be that much better at marketing and sales. So I went out and hired 3 coaches. And what I teach is a very specific process for how to generate a ton of leads in mortgage. And so much of it has to do with marketing. The problem is that loan officers and frankly mortgage companies aren't good at marketing. We're good at sales, like the sales process. Like once the phone rings, I'm pretty good, but attracting 100 leads a month, I'm not so good. My plan is I'm going to call 5 or 10 people a day, and I'm going to try and use my wit and charm and relationship skills to be someone's buddy so they send me loans. That's like our business plan. And it sucks when you think about it. So that's a whole story. But I tell people, so I got 20 clients I started with in Jolt, and I just gave them a guarantee. I said, hey, you will after you graduate, so you got 4 months. It's all based on a final exam of having all this stuff built out. And you will close 50 more loans in the next 12 months, or whatever you paid for the program. I'm going to send your money back. So
okay, that's fair.
Intense, a marketing attraction campaign, and it's there's a lot of simple things that people can do, but they just don't target market. They don't know how to build a database. What we found through going all this, like you talk about, like I have a client. I'll just give you an example. He's Spanish speaking. He's in Texas, and I said, Bud, do you do I-10 loans? He's like, I've done one. I said, well, we're going to set up a database of 500 Spanish-speaking agents that do 6 or more buy-sides in Texas, and you're going to become known as the I-10 king.
Nice.
You're going to see you on social, and you're going to text them, and you're going to get videos from you. They're going to get phone calls from you. You're going to have webinars. You're going to have events. And he says, well, do you think I'll do like 3 or 4 more loans? I said, Bud, within 6 months, you'll do like 20.
Nice.
You're focused on a very specific product, and how you say it to the realtors is, hey, I can make you another 10 grand a month, because there's very few companies that are good at I-10 loans, and there's very few loan officers that are good at them, and there's 0 that promote themselves as that. So it gets very complicated, but that's the overview.
With coaching, though, I mean, the one thing that a lot of coaches, including myself, have found challenging, right, is this one word. It's accountability. And it's such a, like, especially when you're someone who's in Texas, you're in California, I'm in Virginia, some of my clients may be in Colorado. That 24/7 accountability is just, it's got to be back to the mortgage professional. We can show them what to do. We can't execute them on what they're doing. So how do you take on that challenge of accountability?
Well, here's the deal. I mean, you're totally right. It's like if you talk to someone and they just went to a conference and they went to a 2 or 3 day conference and you talk to them 2 weeks later, you're like, what exactly did you implement? Well, nothing, but it was really good. I'm like, well, you just wasted 2 days of your life.
Right.
Like you would only go there so that you could implement and change. So you're right. People really struggle. It's like a good example of this is I go to a gym in the morning. My gym has 4,000 members. It's
Right.
60,000 square feet. It's huge, beautiful place. Guess how many people are in that?
Yeah, about 30.
Yeah, about 12, 20 people in this big old gym out of 4,000 people.
Right.
But yet people will say, I don't know, I really want to lose 30 pounds. Well, you got to move the body and we got to eat less and we got to eat more healthy. Like it's not complicated.
Yeah.
But struggle with it.
Yeah. You know what I found, Todd, which was so amazing, because I dove deep into this neurological thing for a couple of years and I'm still into it, but I mean, obviously you can only spend so much time, is our brain is actually programmed to resist change. It's because it's trying to save calories.
Right.
It's literally trying to say, it's like, it doesn't know, because, the old lizard brain is saying, look, there could be a famine. And Fabi, you're going to change and you're going to do this. And oh my God. And so it's literally resisting the change that I'm trying to make in my life. And so when I don't see my weight loss go down as rapidly as I thought I could, because Todd said I could lose 17 pounds in 30 days and I've only lost 9. It's like, it's never going to work. It's so much easier to say it's never going to work than to keep trying and trying.
Well, and I think if in the mortgage business, it's really put people to the test because they know, like intuitively, something's got to change. And when you're in a market where business is scarce and it's never been more scarce in 30 years, I think last year was the lowest amount of refis ever in 30 years and the lowest home sales in 30 years. So it's really bad. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to sugarcoat it. It sucks. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it will change, but to me, you either have a choice, like, hey, you get out of the business. Okay, that's happened for a lot of people. Then some people say, well, I'm just going to suffer until the market comes back, and then I'll do okay again. Okay, that's a choice. And then the third choice is you have to learn and implement new skills. And that's the hardest choice, but it bears the most fruit.
Yeah.
But it's really hard for people to do that. Like they really get stuck.
Yeah.
Really bad.
You have an interesting leadership approach within the mortgage sector, right? I mean, it's pretty interesting from we did a little bit thing, right? We always try to make sure. Can you share like your core leadership philosophy? Like when I look at Summit Funding, right? What is it about Summit Funding that says this is Todd Scrima's company? What's the culture? What's the one thing that I know that this is Todd's product?
It's a big question. Here's what I would say is I think the company, like Summit, for all these years, if you wanted to brand like a marketing brand, we're a hero brand. So we believe that you can achieve. We believe you can change. We believe you can do whatever you want in life. And your show is kind of like that. You're like that. Like you're just a growth-minded person. And so when people come in, to me, if you think of a business and you like a circle and you cut it down the middle, on one side you've got execution, right? Like, hey, we got to close loans, got to close on time. The POS needs to work, things like that. And then there's the feeling of the company, the culture, and when you combine a highly executable company that really executes well,
mm-hmm.
with a company that's got an enigmatic culture, like, man, I just like those people. They're ethical. They're encouraging. They shoot straight. They tell me like it is. Then that becomes the feeling of the company. If you use an example, like, and I'm not beating up Bank of America when I say this, I've banked with them since I was 16. They're a highly executable company with very little relationship.
Right.
I banked with them I'm 53. So I don't know, 40 something years. And I've never been called by anybody. I keep millions of dollars there. Like, no, not a thank you, not an email thank you, not a phone call. But if I call them, I get whatever I need. So to me, you got to have both.
At what point does that non-relationship that Bank of America has, and once again, we're not picking on Bank of America, this has to be on the floor right now, but at what point would that non-relationship make a decision for you to take the money elsewhere? Is there a point that could occur?
Yeah, so different businesses are different. When it comes to banking, I really don't need someone to call me and stuff. But when you're working together every single day, and there's a lot of companies, I call them platform companies. I don't know why I say that. It's just a name. Like, hey, here's a phone, here's a desk, and let's see what you can do. That would be like a platform company. It just doesn't feel alive, right? There's not a zest there. And companies that have that buzz, that's to me, that's always been the secret in a service business. And they're like, man, I feel like I can reach out to someone. I can ask questions without being scolded. I can join a learning-based platform. I can get coaching. I can get encouragement. And sometimes when I need to be held accountable, I'm willing to take it because they've deposited a lot of emotions to me that are positive. So it's a balance. But going back to the industry, we're in a period of commoditization. And so, 20 years ago, Fabi, the realtor would look at the client and say, hey, you need to see Fabi. Deals get screwed up all the time. Go use Fabi. Today, you could use Fabi. You could use Todd. You could call Mike over there at Wells Fargo. I don't know, just go get a loan. So that's commoditization. When the client starts seeing your product or service as the same as everybody else's.
Yeah.
So the challenge for mortgage is, how do you change that? What are you doing to add value to them? Because the only other choice is to race to the bottom. Yeah. And the industry's already raced to the bottom as much as it can.
Now, there's always room right there. I was told there's always a cellar door inside the basement. So.
Yeah. Well, I read an article, I think it was Housing Wire, and they said it was over 80% of mortgage banks aren't profitable. And the 20% that are is only because of servicing.
Right. But I mean, that's interesting the way you said that, only because of servicing. And I say to that because I've preached this for years when I've spoken to companies like, guys, if you don't have a servicing platform, you're going to not be able to withstand the headwinds when they come. While I know it's expensive and I know it diminishes profitability, all that stuff at a certain point, but it creates that other stream of revenue. So when people say only, it's like somebody had to think about that and somebody had to execute that idea, and then somebody had to fund it. Yeah. So I think those 20% of the companies are pretty intelligent for pulling it off. You know what I mean? Because they're surviving these years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very transparent with people. I'm like, look, the industry's a bloodbath. Summit, we service right at $8 billion in loans, and it brings in a lot of revenue. If it wasn't for that revenue, we wouldn't be profitable.
Right. I mean, and
I've never seen that in the industry.
Yeah, and it balances off the retail channel, by the way, because the pressure to create retail opportunities. Because not to say that you want the servicing to always be there and supplement, but it does allow you to that little bit of gravity or that little bit of breathing room to get from point A to point B as a retail channel.
Right.
And I think that's just, I never want to minimize the people who have thought future and created servicing pools, because it's so important and they should be credited for that. So, look, let's talk about the industry for a second here, because obviously the industry is changing, and we talked about this before the show, and we're going to be as general as possible, but facing the legal challenges and the competitive nature of the industry right now, Todd, I mean, what strategies at Summit are you guys going to implement to navigate obstacles that are now, being posed? Because look, and just for the record, just like I told you, I've been sued. I just finished up my third lawsuit, right? And sometimes I wonder, what the hell? Why is there a tattoo on my forehead that says "sue me"? Because I swear to God, I think I don't do anything, And the biggest lawsuit that I had, by the way, was weird, and I'll talk about it because it's settled years ago. They actually charged me with RICO. Yeah, I mean, same as John Gotti, brother. I'm not joking. And I mean, I called up my attorney. I said, "Why am I not in jail?" If they just charge, then he said it was a way to get it to a federal level instead of the state level. Blah blah. I mean, it just seems like the industry as a whole, we're in this kind of like this suing each other for no reason almost, because we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, so here's what's happened. So first of all, I've had 2 lawsuits in my career in 30 years. And one was a person that said, hey, my manager made it a poor work environment. It wasn't sexual harassment, was like you were mean to me. Okay?
Abusive environment, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one was the one that we're trying to settle now, where we hired some divisionals and they said, you did all this stuff wrong. I'm like, we knew you would sue us. We didn't do jack. But here's the deal. Anyone can sue anybody for a $140 filing fee. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
So what's happened is people use the lawsuits to intimidate their employees.
Yeah.
They know that they're not going to win or it'll get dismissed. But they do lawsuits so that they say, if you follow them, I'm going to sue you, right? I'm like, since when are we like mini Hitlers out there saying, hey, little employee, if you go to this new company, we're going to sue you. I think that there's actually a proposed law in the federal courts to get rid of all those kind of intimidation type lawsuits.
Yeah.
And it's like me telling you, hey, if you come aboard, then you can never leave, or you can't leave for 3 years, or you can't leave for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's say I go to that company and this happens where they're like, it sucks here. Like I can't even get a loan closed. I'm losing my business. But if I leave, I got to pay them back $100,000 and they're going to sue me.
Yeah.
So it's not a, in my opinion, like my dad told me, my dad was a big mentor of mine, and he says, live by the golden rule. You treat people the way you want to be treated. Yeah. So I treat the receptionist the same way as I treat an executive. That's how I live my life. I treat a homeless person the same way as I treat my mom. It's no different to me. But people want to use fear and intimidation in order to manage people. Well, Todd, I'm just saying that's a bad road.
The last lawsuit that I had that we settled, right? I mean, basically they sued me to get the bonus back because they fired me. Now, I know there's other lenders who are also under the same microscope, right? But if you're on a 365-day clawback, a 1-year clawback, it literally means you can be fired on day 364 and you have to refund all the money.
Yep.
Even if you did your job.
Yeah, it's not amortized.
And I'm just like thinking to myself, where do we as an industry take this left turn and end up in this like this really unusual, litigious environment that really doesn't feel like a mortgage environment anymore. It just feels like we're working for bigger corporations and everyone's looking for that bottom line dollar.
Here's what I would say, Fabi, is people need to do what's right. And, these companies, they'll say things like, we live for people, and, all these great sayings, logo.
Yeah, we're a family.
We're a family. Well, I'm going to sue you if you try and leave. Like, it just isn't landing with the employees.
Yeah.
And so long term, what'll happen is that'll become a strategic disadvantage, not an advantage.
Well, I think there's also so many people like myself now that are starting to speak about it because, I guess I'm not frustrated, but I am tired of not vocalizing what I feel. I think that's what it is. You know what I mean? Because there's good guys in this industry and we don't need to be treated in a way that, like if you don't do anything, for God's sake, just leave us alone. Let's do your business. We'll do our business.
It's kind of like, and sorry to use this analogy, guys, and I don't mean it if it strikes a chord extra personally, but let's say that, and I'll use myself as an example, and I'm not married, but let's say I had a wife and I say, hey, let's be loving to each other. Let's support each other. Let's help build dreams together. Let's raise great children. But if you do something wrong, I'm going to slap you right in the face. I'm going to punch you in the jaw.
Right.
And that's what's going on. Sorry to be so graphic, but
no, but what you made me realize is actually a prenuptial that we have. It says, hey, you're going to work for me for 24 months, and if you leave before that, then these are all the things that we could do to you. And
yeah, but it goes beyond that. They in the prenuptial or in the employment contract, it doesn't say if you do this, we're going to sue you.
Yeah, a good point. Good point.
So a prenuptial, like in a marriage, for example, and it says, hey, if happens not to work out, here's what happens, right? There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with it is we got a prenup, and if this happens, here's what happens, and I'm still going to punch you in the face. It's not ethical, in my opinion.
And obviously, look, I mean, this like, as we both know, that this becomes a hindrance to other employees. How does this become a hindrance to mortgage lenders? Because look, I mean, this is what we're talking about, strategic growth, right? So all of us are trying to grow our base as a mortgage, leadership, owner, whatever. Our goal is to grow the base. Now we have to always be mindful of, are they going to sue us? Just like you said, hey, I knew you were going to sue us, so we didn't do anything wrong. You know what I mean? When I got fired, I was like, okay, I'm, fine. Whatever happened, and I'm going on my way. I've never been fired before by any other company in my entire career. You know what I mean? Last thing I expected was a letter in the mail saying, hey, by the way, give us back our bonus. So these kind of things as a growth factor, how do we then implement these so that we I guess take the safest way to grow? Is that the right way to say it?
Companies are going to have to figure that. I mean, the companies are going to do what they do. I just know that long term, if you play that game where you're going to use fear and intimidation to individuals in the same company, it's going to backfire.
Okay.
You won't attract good people. I mean, are you going to go back to work for some of those companies?
Not in a million years.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, there was another gentleman who was on the show, and they was talking about how you can research companies before joining them and just find out how many lawsuits they have pending or they've been involved in. And then that can be your decision-making process of, well, do I want to work for a company that's always suing people?
Well, the problem is when people look at companies, because in my old coaching company, one of my responsibilities was anytime someone wanted to change companies, I had to help them vet it out and make a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
And they just go by their emotion. Well, my friend works there. I'm like, no, ask for their financials, ask for their net worth, look at their lawsuits. Like, I would give them this checklist. Not one person ever did it.
Wow.
And then they'll go there and they'll say, yeah, Todd, it's not working out. Okay. Because you didn't do your research. So it's like.
Well, I appreciate you talking about this because I know, like I said, we wanted to be general, but it's something that I just feel like it feels more and more like we need to start talking about as a community, just so we can push back a little bit. That's all. Not to spotlight anybody or say anybody's wrong or right, but just to kind of say, hey, look, I mean, I'm trying to do everything the right way, and I'm still getting this bullshit that I don't need to be dealing with.
Yeah, but probably not. I think your whole point, our point is that it's not the right direction, and it's somewhat embarrassing for our industry to act that way.
That's the best way to say that. So listen, let's take a pivot here because I wanted to have this talk with you because I know you're big on technology, right? Coaching and technology were two of your biggest. Chat GPT, right? It's been around for a year. AI is here. I mean, to me, when I first heard Chat GPT about a year ago, I told the guy who introduced me to it, I said, this is like being told that the world is not flat, it's round. That's the impact it had on my life, that particular moment. And obviously we've all gotten better with it, but where do you see like the next 5-10 years with all the technology advancements that are coming around, Todd? Where do you see all that impacting loan officers and operationals and all that kind of stuff?
It's a big subject. So I'm not trying to skirt your question because I don't think anyone really has the answer. What I will tell you is, I'll tell you a few things that people don't understand. And we use some AI in that Jolt coaching that's pretty crazy.
Nice.
And I've got a project team that I meet with every week, and we are watching all this stuff. And here's what's different is that and this is for people that aren't used to looking into this. What's different is that the computer chip AI learns. And so I'll give you an example. I'll give you a simple example. There was a big article a couple years ago about, I think Uber had in 28 cities or so, it's probably more than that now, self-driving cars.
Mm-hmm.
So you're putting the Uber driver out of work. Well, there's a big article that one in San Francisco ran into an ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
It did. It was only going like 10 miles an hour, but it ran into an ambulance. So it got a bunch of press. What people don't realize is 10 seconds later, all the cars got updated and said, oh, when there's a siren and it's wet outside, slow down to 10 miles an hour or stop, or right. It instantly learned from that one instance.
Machine learning, yeah.
Yeah. So humans, we got to learn as individuals. So people feel very threatened and intimidated. You're not going to stop it, so you might as well embrace it. And a lot of research on this stuff, but it is like the world is round instead of flat. It's that big of a change.
Yeah.
It's going to be this progression that goes through this. And I told someone the other day, just as an example, I said, hey, you're probably 5 to 8 years away from being able to buy a home robot for 30 grand from Elon Musk, and it's going to do your laundry. It's going to do the dishes. It's going to take the kids to practice. It's going to babysit the kids. It's going to clean your house. It's going to make the bed. And they're like, do you think that's real? I'm like, yes, because you've got to understand they have the chips that allow that kind of learning to happen now.
Yeah.
And people, when they get fearful, they shut down. And don't shut down, just embrace it.
So do you get excited with this technology, Todd? There's this little bit of a tone change in you right now talking about it.
Yeah. I tell you, I got a bot right now that I could have call you. Sounds almost exactly like me.
Yeah.
And it listens to me all day long. It learns what I say, how I say it, my voice intuition, my weird idiosyncrasies on how I speak. And there's about a 0.2 of a second delay right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's gone in 6 months.
Yeah.
So in 6 months, I'll have my bot call you. He could be on this podcast and you wouldn't know the difference.
My God. Yeah.
It's kind of weird to, really understand that.
We've been playing around with this thing called lip dub. I don't know if you've seen that, but it has me speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
In my tone, though it's my voice, it's my tone.
100%.
And the Spanish may be a little bit, not as accurate, it's probably as good as I would speak it, probably better, right? But the tone is still there. And that's what got me, was like, if they can get my tone, I'm a dead man. Because it's like two bots talking to one another on doing a podcast while we're off doing other things.
Yeah.
So who knows, man? So listen, I want to kind of ask you this thing, and I don't know what the answer will be, but if you could go back 35 years ago, whatever that time was when you got in the mortgage business, like what would you tell Todd Scrima on that day that he walked in the mortgage company for the first day?
That's a great question. Do I know what I know today?
Yeah.
Well, I would say two things. Number one, I would say, bud, you just entered a business that's going to do things for you in your life that you never thought possible. It's going to be such a blessing to your life and your growth and your children that you're not going to believe it. And I'm not just talking about the monetary aspect. I'm talking about the relationships and the friendships and what you learn and the fun interactions we get to do. I have one of my executives just got back this morning. I talked to her. She went on a mission, and she went to Guatemala. And some of my people do this mission once a year, and it goes to 29 children in Guatemala that have suffered some of the worst, most horrific. I can't even talk about them. Like you can't talk about this stuff. It's so bad. Okay. Yeah. And they spend a week giving back to these kids. So, what the mortgage industry has done for most of us, like you and me and most of the audience, it's a blessing. Yeah. And then you get into a hard time like this, and people are like, screw this business. Oh, it's never going to change. It's a cycle, right? And it's a hard one, but it's a cycle, and it will change, right? So I would say, hey, make sure that you really understand what this is going to do for you and how great it's going to be. And then the other thing I would say is I would have really learned how to leverage marketing much faster. Like if you take, I'm certain that you wish you would have done this podcast 20 years ago, because you would have, instead of 3,000 listeners, you'd have 50,000, right? I wish we would have embraced AI. I wish we would have learned how to make really good offers and add more value to realtors and borrowers. That's the correction I would have told myself, because until 2 years ago, I didn't know any of that stuff. And I coached some of the best loan officers in the country for 20 years. And I just didn't know it. I knew sales. I didn't know all the marketing stuff. So that's becoming much more important.
All right. Well, Todd, listen, man, thanks for sharing your insights. It's, I don't know about you, but I feel very good about this episode. It was good for me. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of episodes that I walk away feeling good about.
We're doing some therapy for ourselves.
Yeah, I feel very good. So to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey today. Don't forget to subscribe to Laugh, Let and Eat. Your feedback is always welcome. We love hearing from you, our listeners. If you found today's episode valuable, love your reviews, love your feedback. You know what I mean? Once again, Todd Scrima from California Summit Funding. Guys, I wish you the best of luck, Todd. You know that. And I really enjoyed hanging out with you today.
Same to you, Fabi, and thanks for doing this, because I know you do this out of passion, not because you make money doing it, but it's giving back to others, and that's shows your heart. So I appreciate that very much.
All right, brother. Well, with that, let's get out of here, okay? Have a
Thanks,
good one.
guys. Have a great one.
45.
Looks like Todd Duncan.
Sounds like, must be a duck.
Jersey girls are the best. What?
The bunny ears are back.